so happy you're here, and I want to thank especially to have Senator Christine Cohen and Representative John Michael Patrick Parker, and sorry, because you are acknowledging by being here that there is a problem, there is an issue, and so we appreciate that you're seeing it and you're paying attention. So thank you. I also, I'm Claudia White, by the way, the director of DMYFS. My colleague, this is Jade Albert, and she is the director of prevention. I am so happy that we're having this event, and it's a huge collaboration with the Durham Public Library and with Tri-Circle, Anna Gopian, who's over here. And please take some time to notice her quilts. And they represent so many loved ones we've lost to this epidemic. And I would also like to thank Today I Matter with John and Laura Lally from Today I Matter, and he will be our guest speaker tonight. Afterwards, we would like you to join us outside on the green for a vigil.
Thank you, Claudia and Jay. Thank you all for coming tonight. And certainly thank you for the Youth and Family Services here in Durham Middlefield for inviting us, Tri-Circle and Today I Matter, to be part of this event. You know, I wish we didn't have to do this, you know, for lots of different reasons. One, I'm here to tell you a personal story that I've experienced. But for my story, you look at all the faces on these quilts here, and there, and the banner, and outside on the lawn, there's thousands of other stories just like mine. Mine is not so unique. It's certainly unique to me, and each person's experience is slightly different. But so many of us know the pain that we're going to talk about tonight. How many people here actually know someone who struggles with substance use disorder or substance use? Okay. There might have been a couple hands don't go up, and I'm going to say that I think you do know someone. But part of the problem is, why we're talking tonight, is that a lot of people don't speak up about it. There's still, we talk about stigma, right? There's still this stigma about substance use problems and mental health, which often goes hand in hand, right? People are sometimes ashamed and embarrassed to talk about it. A lot of people, families keep it this dirty little secret. We don't talk about it outside here. So that's why I'm willing to bet, for those of you who didn't put your hands up, I'll bet you do know someone who struggles. They just may not have shared that with you yet. But it's happening everywhere, all over the place, and even in Durham. You know, we have one person out on that lawn who's from Durham, but everyone else is from towns right around here that we brought today. And on these quilts too, they're just your locals. These are people in your neighborhood, family, friends, neighbors. And we want to bring this home because I'm sure, I don't live in Durham, but I'm sure Durham is a great town. I live in Ellington. Ellington is a great town. But these things are happening. Too often we run into resistance. People saying, we're a good town. It doesn't happen here. It happens to other people, those people. It's always them, but it's not about them and us anymore. It's about all of us. We are all one. We all know someone who struggles. And so we try to talk about this so that we all can feel part of the solution too. Because for all the people that we have on these quilts and these posters out there, there are many more who are surviving today and thriving, who once had a problem, like all of these people did. So recovery happens too every day, and it is possible, but you don't recover. Very few people, almost nobody, recovers in isolation. So that means you have to find the way to talk about it, to ask for help, get support from other people. That's how recovery happens every day. So that's the other side of the story. But again, I want to thank you for being here. Before I talk about my story, I just wanted to, oh, I lost it. I hope it comes back. It was on for an hour now, suddenly it's gone.
There you go.
Here we go. I wanted to show this quick video. It's about 4:50 actually, right there. This video was put together by two artists.
Oh, it's a touch screen. What? I think that's the volume. That's the volume, John.
Oh, that's the volume. Thank
Go
you.
with the red line.
The red, yeah.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. There we go. I'll get there eventually. This isn't my forte. These two gentlemen on this picture, Casey and Jordan Meyer, they're two young men that are amazing artists in their own right, but they both are very public about being in recovery. And I like to start with this song. I've heard this song countless times, and I cry every time I hear it. It really gives you a sense of the desperation that people who are struggling in the middle of their addiction, that can't find a way out and are sucked back into it over and over again. Yet it ends with some hope. Like these two gentlemen, they have hope. They now have, I don't know how long, but a good amount of sobriety under their belts. And there are also examples that it works, recovery works. But I like to show this, again, not just that it's so powerful emotionally, but it'll get us into the frame of mind, I think. And then I'll share my story. So if I can, I think I hit this. There we go.
When you're gone and your life is over, what will they say? What will they say? When you're gone 'cause you won't get sober, what will they say? What will they say? I don't wanna live life like this no more, I don't. Every time that I say I'll get clean, but I know I won't. I've been battling all this time, it's killing me. And I'm trying to get sober, but it's hard for me.
Let me speak on addiction from the voice of an addict, from someone who's battled to get where they're at on a chance knowing some never have it. Let me speak for the victims, for the families, the lives that are shattered, for the ones that you say had a choice that they made in their life, so their lives never mattered. This one's for Micah, Michelle, then it's Adam. Ryan almost dying in my car in Lantana as I'm driving. I'm trying to revive him. I'm watching his lights dim. You think that it's mind over matter? It doesn't matter. Disease or a choice, and you tease and exploit, so you're squeezing your points. And the person in needs at that teetering point, going deeper when all they really need is a voice. You can do this.
When you're gone and your life is over, what will they say? What will they say? When you're gone 'cause you won't get sober, what will they say? What will they say? I don't wanna live life like this no more, I don't. Every time that I say I'll get clean, but I know I won't. I've been battling all this time, it's killing me. And I'm trying to get sober, but it's hard for me.
I know what it's like to be ran by that instinct inside you that sticks to the lie. I know what it's like to relive all the things that you did till you wished you would die. I know what it's like when you're waking up anxious and sick, and the logical thing is a fix, so you push all the things that you know you should do to the side, 'cause you just want that high. But I also know what it feels like when you wake up excited for life, when you make that decision within you to live, so you give all that sinew and fight for your life. This time if there's breath in your lungs, it doesn't matter the depth of your runs. No more living on borrowing funds, no more thinking tomorrow I'm done, 'cause sometimes tomorrow don't come.
When you're gone and your life is over, what will they say? What will they say? When you're gone 'cause you won't get sober, what will they say? What will they say? There are times I tell myself I'm not the only one. I know I'm not alone, and I try to be brave when everything inside you feels like giving up the fight. Oh no, you're not alone, so just try to be brave. When you're gone and your life is over, what will they say? every time that I sit with me when I know I won't.
But you can.
Okay. Boy, it's hard to watch and listen to again. But that's why we're here, because this is hard to talk about, and too many people don't talk about it. This organization, Today I Matter, was started as a family organization in honor of my son, Tim. We wanted to use his name, the TIM, so that he's near my heart all the time when I speak. And also, I want to tell you about Tim and my family, because, again, this is not an unusual situation. I never thought this would happen to my family. Growing up, I didn't know anyone who openly had trouble with substance use in my family. Some families, we know it. They know it. It happens a lot. I didn't see it in my family. Relatives, aunts, uncles, maybe it was there, but if it was hidden. It was not something I was used to thinking about. Tim was my first son. I have two sons. And Tim had just what you would think of as a typical normal childhood. Grew up in Ellington, Connecticut, a great town, very similar to Durham, probably similar even in size and makeup. Things seemed to be going well for him for a long time. He did pretty much well in school. Right up until high school, he was on the honor roll. He played sports. He loved baseball. Baseball was his favorite sport. But then in his junior to senior year, something changed in him. We suddenly noticed he started getting this more isolative, staying in his room a lot. We saw this you can almost feel like a dark cloud over his head. His mood darkened. And we talked to him about it, and he had trouble talking about what was going on for him. My wife and I are both medical professionals. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. My wife is a psychiatric nurse. So right from there, you would think it doesn't happen in this family, right? We know too much, right? But we knew enough to know something was going on with Tim. So we tried to get him some help. We did look for some help. We went to therapists, a few different therapists. We took him to a psychiatrist. It turns out Tim had developed a very severe depression with an anxiety problem. The anxiety was so bad it became what we call panic disorder. He would have these panic attacks. Sometimes they would start when he woke up in the morning. He just couldn't get out of bed. He'd be crying and shaking and trembling. I can't do this. I don't know how I'm going to get through the day. So again, we tried therapists, psychiatrists. They tried different medications to try to help him, and nothing really helped him feel better. Sometimes it felt a little better, but then he'd have side effects. He'd have to stop them. He never really got to a good place. He told me years later that one day at work, someone gave him a Percocet. And he said, "Dad, I felt so good. My anxiety, it went away. My mood lifted. I felt so good. I felt, wow, this is what life can be like. I can get through the day now. This is great." Well, can you imagine how that must feel to someone who's been really suffering emotionally, and this feels good? Well, you think he's going to take one tomorrow too? Yeah. It was available. He takes one tomorrow. And then the next day. And then you build up a tolerance. So one is not enough. Then he's taking 2. Then he's taking 5. And then he's taking 10, 20 a day. Just trying to not get sick, to get that feeling back that happened the first time. What people are chasing that. They're trying to get that feeling back. It almost doesn't always come back the same way. But they're trying. They're trying to get that feeling back. And they're trying, once you do these drugs for a while, you build up a tolerance. And if they're out of your system, you get what we call dope sick. Some people call it that. Withdrawal, especially from opiates. The withdrawal is horrible. It's not fatal, but it feels like it is to that person. They think they're going to die. They're shaking, they're vomiting, they're sweating, their headaches, they can't control their anxiety. It feels like, I can't tolerate this. So for that other reason, they go out looking for more. And next thing you know, they're addicted. Never meant to be. Everyone, when people, I've talked to so many people with this problem, and the first time they use, everyone thinks, I can handle this. Every single person believes I can handle this, I know what I'm doing. Everybody. All these people on the quilts, I'll bet, thought that the first time. Those people out on the posters, they all thought that the first time they picked up. I can handle this for some reason. But then it sneaks in on them. And then before they know it, their whole life is wrapped up in, how am I going to get more? They go to sleep thinking, how am I going to get it in the morning? All day is, how am I going to get my next fix? It overtakes their life. And people say, how do they act like that? You know, I've seen people forget their family for their loved ones. Parents sometimes don't take good care of their children because they're out looking for drugs. Imagine that desperation where that makes sense to those people at that time. That's the best choice they could come up with. In their mind, that makes sense. But when you take these drugs on a regular basis, it affects your brain, right? Some of you know that. The front of your brain, where your reasoning, your self-control, your judgment is all impaired, so you're not thinking clearly. So people behave in ways that some of us with a clear mind look at them and say, man, why are they doing that? It makes no sense. You're right. In a sober mind, it doesn't make sense until you get some understanding of what it must be like to live like that. And that's what happened to Tim. It snuck up on him. He didn't mean for that to happen, right? He was trying to deal with his depression, anxiety. Nothing else helped. Now, there are a lot of different ways people pick up drugs. Sometimes I've heard it prescribed by their doctor. There may be an injury. I know a family in my poster project, a young man who was a hockey player. And before his first college hockey game, someone gave him a Percocet because it would help his anxiety. And he felt good. Well, my anxiety was down, I felt good. So now he's doing a Percocet before every hockey game. And then, like I said, one leads to two, leads to more. And now he's on our poster project. He's dead. This is another way it happens, okay? So it happens in lots of different ways. But none of these people ever intended it to happen this way. You know, Tim struggled, and we were able to recognize his struggle. We thought it was all his mental health problems, right? And he was in a day program for his mental health. And he came home one day and said, Dad, sat me and my wife down and said, Dad, Mom, my therapist says I got to tell you something. And that's where he revealed that he was using Percocets and opiates and other opiates he was buying on the street. I was floored. I didn't see it coming. Maybe I should have. Nowadays, you got to look for it, okay? I assumed it was his mental health, you know, and that's why he was having such a hard time, because that's how it started. But it was getting worse and worse. It doesn't help your mental health. Even though he felt good in the beginning, eventually it made everything worse, right? So, all right. You understand, Tim? Let's get you back into a substance abuse program, okay? Well, he did. He went to a residential program, stayed there for 4 weeks, came out, went back to a day program for a while, and he said to me, Dad, I feel so good. My mind is clear. This feels so good. I'm glad I went into treatment. He loved it. But then something happened, which happens all the time, almost all the time, especially with opiates and other drug use. It sneaks back in on the person. They let their guard down. Next thing I know, we used to call it relapse. Now he returned to use. Next thing you know, he's using again. He didn't mean to. Something happened, something switched inside of him, and it was available, and at that moment it made sense. And now he's back in trouble. And he's struggling. And he was living Tim never could live on his own. He lived until he was 29, almost 30 years old. He never was able to live on his own because of his struggles. You know, and so one day, he looked like he was struggling again. And my wife and I were talking to him, and he was fidgeting with something in his pocket. And something was going on. You know, as a parent, you have these sixth sense. What's going on? What's in your pocket, Tim? Nothing. Show me what's in your pocket. He pulled out a needle. Even now, I think of that moment, I can almost hit the floor. You're kidding me. This doesn't happen. This is not in my mind. This can't happen in my life. In your life, in our lives, nobody I know. He's now shooting in heroin. He's buying heroin on the street because the pills dried up, and now he's shooting heroin. Just, oh my God, how can this be happening to us? But okay, take a deep breath. All right. Let's get you back into treatment. Let's call your therapist. Let's get you back into treatment. And he went back into a residential program again. And you know, I want to be honest with you. I had a hard time dealing with this. I didn't deal with it the way I wish I would in retrospect now. As a father, I was struggling with my own feelings about how could this happen to my son. What I felt inadequacy as a father. How could this happen to my son? I'm supposed to be an example. I'm supposed to protect him. And now he does this. And so I put it on him, as his fault. He's messing up again. Why are you messing up, Tim? You're just not doing what you're supposed to do. And the first time when he went back into treatment again, the first week he went back for the second time, there were visiting hours every Sunday. I said to my wife, I'm not going. I'm not going to reinforce this behavior in my son. I'm going to show him I don't approve of this. And I didn't go. Man, do I resent that. I regret that now. I regret that. I turned my back on him when he needed me the most. But it was my own feelings of inadequacy. And for some men, myself included, anger is the first emotion I go to. And I angered, instead of being angry, I didn't want to be angry at myself, so I was angry at him. He screwed up, and you know what? That's the worst thing to hear. Because Tim already felt like a loser. He would say that to me. I am a loser, Dad. Why are you guys even trying? I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do. I'm trying, but it's not working. And I hate to say now, but back then, I think my behavior reinforced his belief about himself. Because I blamed him for just not doing the right thing. It was my own, it was an inadequate, inappropriate emotional reaction. Again, I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. Up here, I knew better. I knew more about addiction and the science of addiction and health. But my emotions got the best of me. And as a father, I just lashed out. And you're just screwing up. You're doing the wrong thing. And I talk to other families, and I guess I'm glad and I'm not glad that I hear the same story. A lot of other families go through this. Anger is one of our adjustments, right? There's anger and blaming. Because we don't know what else to do. We don't know what to do with these feelings. And why is this happening? It doesn't make sense. But Tim, I did go back the second week for visiting hours. And Tim got through that program. And then when he finished that program, they offered him to live in what we call a sober house, which is a residential home or building where all people in recovery live together. And sometimes, well, there's different levels of sober houses. Sometimes they have a lot of supervision. Sometimes they have no supervision. Sometimes they have some treatment built in. Sometimes they don't. His didn't have much of anything. I didn't want him to go, but he felt, Dad, I've never lived on my own. I need to do this for myself. I need to show myself and show you that I can do this. So, okay, go ahead. We tried to support him. And we wouldn't give him money. They say never give people money if they're struggling with addiction, right? Although we would buy him groceries. He had to have his own groceries at this house and take him shopping and give him the groceries and things. And things seemed to be going okay until one morning. It was January 16th, January 26th of 2016, at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm woken up by a phone call. 5 o'clock in the morning, that's never good news to get a phone call, right? And I pick up the phone, and there was a doctor at Rockville Hospital telling me that Tim was there. He had a cardiac arrest. His heart had stopped. 29-year-old. His heart had stopped because of an overdose of opiates. So he was brought into the hospital. You better come in right away. So I wake my wife up. We jump in the car, call my other son. He meets us at the hospital. And we walk into the emergency room. And the doctor brings us in, and Tim's laying on a gurney, unresponsive. He's got a breathing tube in. He's got intravenous's in. He doesn't even know he's alive. He's only alive because the EMTs, when they got to the house he was living in, that was the other part. We didn't know he was thrown out of the sober house. 3 days before he died, he was thrown out of the house because he was going to have a urine test. They made him do a urine test, and he fessed up and said, well, I might as well tell you, I did do some Percocets. So it was a no-tolerance policy, so you're out. Now, we were listed as emergency contacts. That's not an emergency. Someone's relapsed who's a known person with a long history of opiate use, and he's thrown out on the street. That's not an emergency, but they never called us. And it was the stigma, I think, that got to Tim at that point. He was too embarrassed to call us and say, I messed up. He was too embarrassed to say, I relapsed again. So he called around, he found a place to stay. It was a guy who he used to buy drugs from, who said, you can stay in my basement until you figure out what to do. And that's where Tim went. I didn't even know he was there. We thought he was in the sober house. And during the night, the roommate, the guy whose house it was upstairs, and Tim was down in the basement, and he heard a thump. It's what he told us after the fact. And he went downstairs, and Tim was on the floor, and there were needles there too. And he called 911. By the time the EMTs got there, they gave him Narcan, but it didn't work. But they were able to do CPR. They got his heart and shocked him with the AED. They got his heart starting, it started again. But they had to, what we call intubate him, put a tube in. He wasn't breathing on his own. So they're able to get that part, and they got him to the hospital. And that's when we got the call. So my wife and I, as I said, we're both medical people. As soon as we looked at Tim, we knew this isn't good. This doesn't seem like it's going to go in a good direction. But Rockville Hospital was a very small community hospital. They said, let's transfer him down to Hartford. You know, they have better specialists there. Let's see what they can do. So we got him in an ambulance. My wife drove in an ambulance with him, and my other son and I drove behind, you know, just panicking all the time there. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And they get down there. The idea was some people, if they have some brain damage, you can cool the body down. And that saves the brain cells from dying so quickly and maybe give them more time. But by the time we got down there, they did a CAT scan, and the diagnosis was what they call severe cerebral anoxia. Anoxia means lack of oxygen. So lack of oxygen to the brain. So there was severe damage to the point where they said a cooling blanket's not even going to help. But you know, he's an otherwise healthy young man. Let's give him some time. Let's move him up to the ICU. Let's see, sometimes the brain swelling can go down. People might wake up. We don't know, right? So of course we said, yeah, let's do what we can. So we moved him up to the intensive care unit. And of course, you know, calling the family, because we don't know that he's going to make it out of here. And we're very fortunate. My wife and I both have big families, all local. They filled up the waiting room with people coming to see Tim. And I had to go out there and explain to them. And for almost all of them, they could see Tim. They knew he struggled with mental health problems, but none of them knew he had a drug problem. Tim was very private about that. He was ashamed, and he didn't want to talk about it. So we respected that for him. And of course, they were all floored. You know, my one brother-in-law, how could that happen? If you should have just told me, I would have talked to Tim. This wouldn't have happened. Like that would have made a difference. But people had different reactions, of course, and they all were shocked. But I had to stand there and tell them. I said, but we're going to give Tim some time. The doctor said, let's see what happens here, okay? So we sat with him and sat with him. The visitors were able to come in 2 at a time, come and see Tim. And meanwhile, Tim, you know, was, like I said, he's on a breathing machine. He's not even aware of anything. So we watched overnight, you know, and again, being a health professional, you can look at someone and you can see signs of worsening brain damage. And my wife and I looked at each other and we saw that. And we said, instead of getting better, this is actually getting worse. We could see that. Well, the doctor came in the morning and said, yeah, this does look worse. We at some point now, legally, we have to do a test to see if he's what we call brain dead. If there's absolutely no activity in the brain, they can do an EEG. And you might want to think about donating organs for him. So initially we said, I guess, you know, we don't want to have this choice, but maybe, I guess that sounds like a good thing, right? And Tim had put on his driver's license that he wanted to be a donor. Well, we met with the donor team, and come to find out, they did some blood tests and things, and because Tim had been in cardiac arrest for a while and not oxygen going to his body, not just his brain, the rest of his body. He had a lot of kidney damage. He had a lot of liver damage. And they weren't sure if that was going to come back enough to be able to use him as a donor. But they could wait and see, keep him on medicines, and maybe in a couple weeks he would be in a point where they could do that. And you know, I talked with my wife and my son, and we just couldn't wait a couple weeks. These last 36 hours, I couldn't imagine how I even got through that. I can't do this for weeks on end, not even know what's going to happen. We said, that's not fair for Tim. So the other choice is fine. Then we have to make the choice, do we take him off the ventilator? You know, how much worse of a decision can it be for a parent to say, take him off the ventilator? I mean, I knew Tim didn't know we were there. I understood what brain damage was, and I knew he had no knowledge of what was going on. I believe that. I do believe that. Maybe he could hear. They say the last thing to go is people's hearing, so we would certainly talk to him. But I don't think he was aware that he was even alive. So we decided to let him go. You know, we said, I sat, my wife and I, my other son, and we said, you know what? I don't know, we might second guess this decision somewhere down the road. And I probably have second guessed that about 1,000 times since then. But with what we know now, this is the decision we agreed on, that this is the best decision with what we could do. So we told the doctors that we're going to let him go before they did the test, the EEG. Because one thing we found out, if they do an EEG and find out that you're brain dead, and you put donor on your license, legally, the family has no more say in it. It's taken away from you, because as an adult, he gave legal permission already. So as a family, we couldn't say, we don't want to wait 2 weeks. It would be taken out of our hands. So that's another reason why we said, before you do this test, we already knew and the doctor agreed that would be the result. We said, let him go. So we talked to the staff, they got ready. We picked a time, we let the family know. They all came in to say goodbye to Tim. And then we let the staff know, the nurse came in and the doctor, and they disconnected him from the ventilator. My son Brendan is holding Tim's hand and talking to him. My wife is on the other side of the bed, shaking, trembling. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And for what I needed to do, I put my head on his chest. I needed to listen to his heart. I wanted to hear every last beat until it was gone. And it took about 5.5 minutes once they turned off the ventilator until I could hear in his heart no longer. And that was it. That was the end of my son's life, his time here on earth. That's why I'm here. This story happens over and over and over and over and over again. We're losing countrywide over 300, or a little bit less than that now, maybe 275 people every single day, day after day after day. This story is happening to individuals, to their families, day after day after day. And don't think it can't happen here. Please. It's happening here. It's in your town. And since Tim passed, things have gotten worse. The numbers the last 2 years have actually gone down nationwide, which I'm so thankful for. But still, in Connecticut, we're likely to lose 900 people this year. It was 1,100 last year, a little over 1,100. So that's an improvement. But that's still 900 people just in Connecticut, a small state. It's way too many. So it's still too many. We got to keep working on this, and it's happening here. Don't say our town is too good, please. And what's gotten worse since Tim passed is you've all heard of fentanyl. It's become a political football these days. But take the politics out of it. Let's take the people, real people that are dying every day. For whatever reason, I'm not even going to talk about how it got here or why it got here, but it's here. It's in Durham. It's in every town. It's hard to find opiates these days that are not tainted with fentanyl. There's other drugs too. You might have heard of xylazine. There's a couple of new opiates too that are turning up, but they're not as common. Fentanyl's the most common one. And there's counterfeit pills on the street. Drug dealers have gotten really smart. A smart way to make money in their mind, right? They have pill presses. They can take a substance, press it into a pill. On that pill, they can put writing. You know, they have, it looks like a yellow, looks like, it says Xanax right on it. They make counterfeit Xanax. They make counterfeit Percocet. They make counterfeit Adderall. The pills they're buying on the street look just like what you got from a pharmacy. Even some pharmacists can't tell the difference without actually testing the chemical in the pill. According to the DEA right now, 6 out of 10 counterfeit pills that you can buy on the street have a deadly dose of fentanyl. It only takes a smidgen of fentanyl to kill a person. If they're not used to taking opiates, 1 pill can kill these days. That's the honest truth. It's not hyperbole. Please, you know, we're not just trying to scare people out of drugs. This is the fact. If you're naive, if you're not used to taking opiates, 1 pill can be the last pill. And kids are kids. I say kids, it's not just kids. The average age of people dying from overdose these days is between 35 and 50. That's the average age between people dying. But for most people who start experimenting, it starts when they're younger. Late teens is the most common time people start with first picking up a drug. And if they happen to buy a pill from a friend who says, look, these are Xanax, you know, or Adderall. People take Adderall for ADHD. It's prescribed for that, right? A lot of kids are taking that. Well, 6 months ago, there was a shortage of Adderall in the pharmacies. So people were going on the street. Well, here's some Adderall. It looks like an Adderall pill. 6 out of 10 of those pills can have a deadly dose of fentanyl. The person take 1 pill and they're dead. That's the reality today. And there's more complicating factors. I won't get into all of them, but there's another chemical called xylazine, which is now into pills. Okay? Some brain came up with the idea, if we add xylazine to the opiates, it'll make your high last a little bit longer. So people who are struggling with addiction, who have a high tolerance for drugs, they're sometimes looking for something stronger because the old stuff isn't working anymore. It's not cutting it. So in their mind, it makes sense to get something stronger. But xylazine is not like an opiate. We have a drug now called Narcan. I hope everybody's heard of that. Narcan is a drug, a medication, if you will, that reverses the opiate overdose. When a person dies from opiates, what happens is their breathing stops or slows down, so they can't get enough oxygen to their brain. If you give someone Narcan, it reverses that so they can start breathing again, if you catch them soon enough. If you're stopped breathing for 4 or 5 minutes, you're not coming back. If you slow down breathing, you can live a little bit longer, right? But it has to be done quickly. Xylazine is a new drug that they put in there, doesn't respond to Narcan. And it also is a respiratory depressant. It slows down your breathing. So with Narcan, it might reverse the opiate, but if there's xylazine in it, that's not going to be affected. So you kind of have to wait and do CPR and do some breaths until the xylazine wears off. It's just an example of how things are. It's not so much the drug. As though there are drugs that are more harmful than others and more deadly, but it's about the drug use. Because something else is going to be coming down the pike. If we figure out what to do with fentanyl, something else is going to come. You know why? Because there's a way to make money. Remember, some of us, well, we're not old enough to remember Prohibition being alive there, most of us, but we know that it happened. People found a way to get alcohol and a way to make money getting alcohol into here. If there's a way to make money, people are going to find a way to do it. So it's really, let's not focus as much on the drug, even though, again, some like fentanyl is more deadly, but it's the drug use that's a problem. So we have to talk to each other. We have to figure out why are people turning to substances and help them figure out a better way. And first by talking about it, by being opening, by acknowledging it's happening here, it's happening now. Someone in this town is going to die again from drug use. I don't know, it could be tomorrow, it could be next year, it's going to happen. Statistically, it's unavoidable. But the problem is solvable. The problem is not, it's not avoidable, but there is a solution. We keep working on it. We've already cut back the number of people dying. There's a lot more Narcan. Everybody should have Narcan in their home. If you don't, talk to the prevention people here in your town. They can find a way to get it to you. No charge. Not that Narcan is free, but there are grants that are paying for Narcan to help get it out to people. We believe Narcan should be in every household, because you never know. It should be in every school, every public building, because you never know when it's going to happen, right? When you least expect it. And the great thing about Narcan, it's totally harmless. If you don't have opiates in your system, it has no effect on you at all. There hasn't even been any evidence that it has any allergies to Narcan, so it's entirely safe. If someone goes down and they're passed out, I don't know why, I give them Narcan. It may or may not work, but it can't hurt them. I could squirt it in my nose right now because I have no opiates in my brain. It'd be like squirting water in my nose. It would have no effect. So there's no danger in giving it to someone who may not be in an overdose, because you don't know. Most of the time, if you come across someone and they're down, unless you saw them take the drugs, you're not going to know why they're down. So if you have Narcan, my saying is, when in doubt, squirt it out. Give it anyway, because you can't be any harm. And we all need to figure out our way to get Narcan, again, because it's here, it's in this town. It looks like it's in this town to stay. Let's hope that changes someday and we figure out how to change that. Okay? The other last thing I want to leave you with is to think about people who are struggling with compassion. You know, there's a lot of judgment. You know, I heard it too, even as a parent. What kind of parent must you have been that your son turned into a drug addict, to a heroin user? Man, how did you mess him up? There's a lot of judgment about families and parents, aren't there? There's certainly judgment about people who use drugs. What's wrong with you? You're just being stupid. You know, I heard people say, why give someone Narcan? Maybe they deserve to die. That's their choice. Was it their choice to die? No, it's not. If someone has a heart attack, do we not do CPR? Because, well, they shouldn't have had that cheeseburger yesterday. They deserve to die. We don't think about that. No one deserves to die because they're struggling, because the choice they made may not have been the choice I would have made, but they deserve some compassion. There's a reason they made that choice. For them, at that moment, it seemed like the best thing they knew to do. So we can think about that with compassion, think about people who are struggling with compassion, and open ourselves up to them, and not judging, instead of offer support. Maybe we can make even a bigger dent on this. So again, I want to thank you for coming tonight. Please stick around. We're going to have a vigil. We're going to go outside on the lawn. We're going to read the names of all the individuals in this project here, the quilt project and then the poster project, because we want their names to be said out loud. They and their families deserve the dignity of being remembered. So if you wouldn't mind joining us out there. But I'm also here, if anybody has any questions or anything to need, anything that I can help with, Anna from Tri-Circle is really knowledgeable about stuff for you. If you're looking for help or support or somewhere to go, she can help you, and as well as the prevention people here in town. They're really knowledgeable. They're the ones who said, we got to do this in our town. Our people need to hear this. So again, thank you for coming tonight.
Shows a lot about the character of everybody here, that everybody decided to take time out of their day to come to this really important event. If you have somebody who you'd like to who you'd like remembered, at the end you can say their name out loud, or you can come tell me and I will add them to the list. Barbara Abbott, Lisa Adriana, Tim Barr, Matthew Burnett, Den Bengston, Luke Bile-Trotsky, Lynn Bickford, Scott Bottomley, Lucas Brenton, Gavin Brockley, Matthew Brown, Jesse Burba, Amanda Cow, Michael Kavanaugh, Harley Chamberlain, Tyler Chamberlain, Lisa Chang, Richard O. Clark, Jason Thomas Cohn, Ben Comparne, David Congdon, Michael Contello, Tiara Corley, Kelly Coughlin, Brenda Crofts, Michael Cugno, Jason Dione, Brianna Dow, Kevin Drobner, Harry Drummond, Jared Duclos, Jeremy Dwyer, Catherine Dunn, Jake Dupree, Sean Dyer, Anthony Fiore, Cameron Fierney, Kyle Fitzgerald, Mather Fitzgerald, John Paul Flynn, Andrew Fortenberry, John Flynn, Dan Foley, Drew Funk, Nicholas Gabucci, Michael Gagnon, Teddy Gagnon, Nicholas Goyer, Michael Haggerty, Sierra Halleck, Nick Harlem Bidis, Sean Harwood, Sebi Harushin, Brendan Hatton, Crystal Hayden, Jack Higgins, Mike Howe, Benjamin Illiff, Nene Inorio, Martine Jenin, Mark Johansson, Brent Johnson, Randy Johnson, Heather Keeman, Jesse James Keith, Jake Kilhenny, Gary King, Billy Kierhofer, Chelsea Klein, Nick Kruzchek, Amanda Kreisat, Daniel LaChapelle, Timothy Lally, Ivany Lawden, Brian LaVorgna, Christopher Lumley, Josh Buchenwick, Philip Lyons, Sean Maddock, Joe Maher, Danny Medtresnek, Corey Matchlock, Ricky Mavericks, John Mayera, Stefan Medeiros, Anthony Mises, Mitchell Niardo, Dimitri Moore, Derek Morrell, Todd Morin, Elizabeth Moriarty, Dawn Needler, Grace Needler, Joe Norekis, John Nukla, David O'Keefe, Victor Olmo, Edwin Ortiz, Joey Palumbo, Greg Parker, Jamie Pasquarel, Josh Pender, Lucas Pender, Rihanna Perez, Ashley Pilo, Zachary Robert Ramsdell, Ashley Rector, Patrick Reynolds, David Rice, Michelle Rafani, Patrick Rogers, Lunsley Dawn Rusi, Robert Segna, Ben Sinuta, Michael David Sharp, Stephanie Sharp, Justin Sparkman, Jeffrey Cipher, John Taylor, Jeff Tarr, Brother Taylor, Brooke Taylor, Patrick Tew, Jose Vasquez, MJ Virch, Preston Wagner, Justin Weaver, Heather Winslow, Neil Tandon, Chris Yelmini, Dr. Gary, Amy, Jordan, Cowboy, Day KB. Is there anybody else who'd like to share a name? also like to acknowledge all those whose name we did not read, but who are still struggling. And I'd also like to just hold some space for those who have not found sobriety yet, but that there's still hope. Thank you all so much for coming. This means a lot to me, I know. And I think I could speak for the Lollies and Anna, that it probably means a lot to them too, that you all came. Thank you so much.